Start our webinar with the video on Know Your Ethics. Today, we have two sessions. First session, Succession Planning for CA by CA Mahendra Bhai Turakia. Humble and down-to-earth personality. Actually, Mahendra Bhai doesn't need any introduction. We all enjoy the venue Direct for our study circle meetings, which belongs to him. And he allows us to conduct the seminars there. And our second speaker is immediate past convener CA Chintan Shah, who will guide us on Udyam registration and benefits. I now request CA Kamal Dhanuka ji to formally introduce CA Mahendra Turakia ji.
Thank you, Simaji, for giving me this privilege to introduce Mahendra Bhai Turakia. महेंद्र भाई को कौन नहीं जानता, इनका इंट्रोडक्शन देना एक सूरज को दिया दिखाने जैसा है. फिर भी एज अ मैटर ऑफ प्रोटोकॉल आई एम ब्रीफली इंट्रोड्यूसिंग हिम. ही इज a chartered accountant since 1975 with 43 years of experience. He is running many professional firms. He is a partner in PM Turakia and Associate, PM Consultancy Services, PM Turakia and Company, Prinic Corporate Advisory LLP, JBTM Associate, EB5 Solicits Advisory Private Limited. Each and every firm is involved in different sphere of professional practice. His field of experience includes accounts, amalgamation, mergers, audit, whether compliance, legal, tax, concurrent corporate governance, efficiency, external income and expenditure, inspection, internal management operation, SEBI statutory stock exchange members, compliance, stock verification. I think Mahendra Bhai, you covered everything in practice. Audit, company law, corporate planning, costing, direct tax, double taxation, and many others. He got 37th rank in intermediate and 30th rank in CA final examinations. He also completed many professional courses, 14 weeks intensive course cum training program course on independent directors organized by BCA and SP Jain Institute of Management, 10 weeks intensive course cum training program on arbitration, conciliation and mediation organized by BCA, training for franchisee development organized by Franchisee Guru, course on double taxation avoidance agreement organized by Bombay Chartered Accountants Society with WIRC of ICAI. He is also holding directorship in Priyansa Maven Finance Limited, NSE member, direct and media net group of companies. Above all, he is also trustee and associated with more than 20 trusts for his charitable activities. With this, I request all to please welcome with a round of applause. Thank you. Welcome, Mahendra Bhai.
Good morning to everybody. First of all, I thank you for introducing me and inviting me to speak on succession planning for chartered accountants. When a topic was given, I was a little bit surprised that when the chartered accountants are guiding their own clients about the successions, why they need for this topic for themselves. Then a little bit carried out a research, and I find that most of the CA are ignoring their own state of affairs. So succession planning is essential for everybody, whether the businessman or a professionals, or even non-businessmen and non-professionals. Now the traditional and customary method of succession planning is to make a will. And through will, we can distribute our assets among our legal heirs. But however, the will has certain limitations. For example, will is liable to be challenged by other legal heirs who are not satisfied with the contents of the will. In that case, almost 15 to 20 years will go in the court battle. Or there is if it is not challenged, then at least you have to obtain the probate in the 3 metropolitan cities of India, that is Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. So even the probate, seeking the probate from the High Court is also a time-consuming and cost-prohibitive. Plus, one has to pay probate duty of 3% to 75,000, which is lower to the court. And again, it is a time-consuming. It takes about 2 to 3 years for this. So, if you want to avoid these limitations of the will of challenging and avoiding probate duty or avoiding the probate, seeking the probate from the court, my advice to the chartered accountants would be to form a private trust, which should be discretionary. So if it is a discretionary trust is formed, at least they can protect their own wealth, which they have developed, which they have built up over a period of years, particularly from the misled or unruly children or jealous relatives, or in case we go to bankruptcy, then trust will protect us from all sorts of eventuality, etc. Now, I observed that we have got about, as on 2020, there were 88,076 chartered accountant firms. Out of that, 63,751 firms are proprietary company. That is almost 72% of the total chartered accountants are practicing as a proprietor. Here, I think who needs the utmost need for the successful planning is the proprietary company rather than partnership, large partnership others. Because I observe over a period of my 43 years of experience as a chartered accountant that most of the proprietors, either they allow the practices diminishes with the advancing age, or when they close down, when about to retire, then they just return the file to the client and request the client to go to another chartered accountant to find another CA because he is interested in closing down the firm. So this results, or this indicates that a CA who has toiled about 30 to 40 years of his career in developing and building up the practice, he doesn't get anything. He gets almost zero. Almost zero, because when they return the files, he doesn't get any return. Whereas in case of partnership firm, normally partners, when he retires, he gets a goodwill or some compensation in case of partnership firm. But in case of proprietary, it is not so. So, and there is another, on the other hand, there are young chartered accountants who wants to come to the practice, but unfortunately, they are not so successful in getting the work, professional work from the clients. And they do try for 1 or 2 years, but when they do not get the adequate amount of practice, they leave the practice and join the or accept the job in some other company. So, in order to provide the bridge and common platform between the senior chartered accountants above the age of 55 years and the young chartered accountants below 35 years, I have come out, or our firm has come out with a planning to help the senior CA to sell the practice and young chartered accountants to buy the running practice of the retiring partners. For that, we created a platform called BizPropExchange.com. It is an online platform where anybody who wants to sell his practice can list himself or herself, and similarly, the person who is interested in buying or acquiring the practice can list himself as a buyer on a website. Now, if you go to a website, we have given the a booklet, e-booklet for retirement type of professionals. Then also we have got a FAQ sections on our website. So if any CA who is interested either in retiring or in selling the practice, or they do any retirement planning, or young chartered accountant who wants to establish the practice, are invited to at least visit and access our website bizpropexchange.com, where you get all the information about how we are operating and how we are helping the senior most chartered accountants and young chartered accountants. Now, what happens, suppose, particularly those who are sole proprietor, they should plan at least 3 years minimum, and ideally 5 years before they retire, before their intending age of retirement, because he has to prepare the second line to take over his practice. He may be the employee of his company or senior most employee of the company, or the person who is an article clerk who has passed out as a chartered accountant from his firm and working with him. So if he give a chance to that either the senior most employee or the the person who is working, who is a chartered accountant working with him, or a person who has passed out as a chartered accountant as an article clerk from his firm, he can invite him to join him. He can train him and introduce to all the clients, allow him to handle the work independently for 2 years. He should only guide the newcomer or new incumbent for a period of 2 years. He should not handle himself, or he should stop visiting the clients. And wherever the client needs any visit, only should send his junior partner who has taken up either by sale of practice or by making him a partner for taking the goodwill. So that way he can maintain the practice, and so also the person who has bought the practice, or who has acquired the practice, or who has joined by buying by paying the goodwill value, he will not suffer over a period of time, because normally any profession is depending upon the independent individual context. So the clients normally have the faith in the CA or in the professionals who is attending to his work. When he is no more available, then normally client feels uncomfortable and he likes to go to somebody else where he feels comfortable. So in order to make all these things, we have to slowly withdraw ourselves from the active practice and put another CA in forefront. Now, what we have done is those who are selling the practice, when they register with us, they are giving the details about their gross practice of last 3 years. We are not interested in knowing what is the net practice, because the net practice sometimes do not represent the correct outcome. So if the prospective buyer, he knows what is the gross value of the practice, he understands that what will be the approximate overhead, which may vary depending upon the person. Sorry. So, depending upon the person who joins, so we just on the basis of gross practice, the value derived at, particularly in USA, it is the valuations of any CA firm or any professional firm vary from 80% to 120% of the gross value. When both the party, buyers and sellers make, they negotiate the price. So here, the retiring chartered accountant who is about to close the firm, he can get the fruit of his labor of last 30 to 40 years. And the young chartered accountant who is interested can acquire the running practice and establish himself. Now, what is the guarantee that if a chartered accountant joins and a senior chartered accountant retires and leaves the firm, what is the guarantee the practice will continue? So for that, we advise both the people that you should take, when you sign the MOU for selling the practice or acquiring the practice, you should pay 1/3 on the signing of the agreement, and another 1/3 at the end of the first year, and the balance at the end of second year. So during these 2 years, most of the clients came to the contact with a new incumbent and they feel comfortable. So there is a least possibility of any client leaving. And that way they can sustain the practice, or they can increase the practice. However, sometimes practice may reduce or practice may increase over a period of 2 years. So we are providing a clause in the MOU that in case will be reduce proportionately or increase proportionately so that neither party lose or gain over a period of 2 years just because of facility. Now, so also we have tied up with a few banks, almost you can say 5 banks. And if any chartered accountant who is acquiring and he doesn't have the adequate or requisite resources, so first we have given the facility of making the payment installment. So only has to arrangement for 1/3. Even if 1/3 is not have a facility, then we are helping through our tied up banks who will advance the loan to him to acquire the practice. It will be in the form of term loan and it can be payable with a moratorium of 2 years and in next 3 to 5 years, depending upon the convenience of the borrower. There is another way also of besides the way or besides creating a trust or besides selling the practice. Suppose in my family there is no chartered accountant or there is no advocate who can attend the work. So if there is no C, at least none of the members can attend to the audit practice, where the attestation with certificate is required, where any document required to be certified may not be in the position to work. But however, other than the audit work, any consultancy like income tax, GST, management consultancy, or financial, or project finance, or financial planning, investment, everything, all these things can be transferred to a private limited company where you can make it members of family as a shareholder and direct to the company. So all those non-attesting functions can be practiced through private limited company. So when he is not there, his members of family, those that are not professionally qualified, can take over and manage the practice by employing the qualified persons. So this is another way of, you can say, successor planning for chartered accountants. I think this would be so before planning, at least a chartered accountant should decide whether he want to sell the practice, he want to close down the practice, or he want to amalgamate with another firm. So depending upon that, he can do his successor planning for his running practice as a chartered accountant. And if he decides, or he decides to take somebody as a partner, then there is no question of selling the practice. But if he decides to merge with another CA firm, then also there is no question of any succession planning to his firm. But suppose he decides to close down, then he definitely needs planning for finding out some buyer whom he can help to sell his running practice, and also he can get some money instead of getting zero money. That's all I think on succession planning as far as the chartered accountant concerns. Any questions from the members?
Mahendra bhai, 3-4 questions are there. Shall we take it right now?
Yes, we can right now take.
Okay, I will share the screen now. I will ask you one question. Please clarify the issue related to merger of the firms. How to handle auditor appointment of the public company. As public company, to change the firm, they need to hold EGM, which is registered by the corporate. Please advise how to handle it.
What one? I do not follow that.
Hello, I will share the screen so that you can see the question. Okay. Are you able to see the questions? Okay.
Here I think this problem is common in case of particularly public company, where if the EGM needs to be held, it is very costly affair. So in my opinion, it should be a joint auditor. If there is a joint auditor and if one chartered account retires, then I don't think there is a need of calling extraordinary meeting and appoint another in its place. There is one solution. Is there any way to take back the property gifted earlier under the registered deed?
No.
If the registered deed provides such clause that in case of such some eventuality, the gifted amount will revert back to the donor, then yes, possible. But this becomes a revocable gift. So from the interest point of view, if it is a revocable gift, the IT Act does not recognize. So income arising from the gifted property will still continue to be taxed in the hands of the donor. Third question. What is your experience of clients when practice are sold or transferred to another CA, especially keeping in mind that individual CA practice have personal connect with the clients? Is there any non-compete agreement signed by the CA selling the practice? See, that's why we have said that every chartered accountant who is intending or contemplating to retire should do at least 3 to 5 years before the intending the time. So in that period, when suppose he sells the practice, the successors can join as a partner with him, and he will give the idea about all his clients, particularity, speciality, particular issue. All this he will make familiar. He will ask him to attend all the clients' works. He will be remaining present only in case of difficulty or in case where the junior chartered accountant cannot answer. He will interfere and answer to the queries of the question. So during this cooling period of 2 to 3 years, I think the another new incumbent will be absolutely ready to take over, and within 2 to 3 years also new incumbent would have inspired or generated even enough confidence and trust in the client. So there is no possibility to for any client to leave the organization. That is the way of planning. As a non-compete agreement, yes, definitely the bar has to make this one of the clauses in the MOU that we will not compete with either starting with a new firm or by joining the another firm. So for a certain period of at least 3 to 5 years, he can put that restriction which is reasonable. But beyond 5 years is unreasonable. If he goes to the court, maybe strike down. So 3 to 5 years cooling period can be permitted. Please throw the light on the process of how one can keep or will his practice to someone who is not biological child. If he is not a biological child, there is no question of gift. He can only sell the practice, or if he gift the practice and if not related, then naturally Section 50 should be applicable in anything he transfer valuable assets. Then the difference in the market fair value and the consideration reside will be taxable as a income from other sources under Section 56. Certain modes suggested for succession will it comply with the new mode of code of ethics, which seems more stringent. Which are the mode where you have any doubt, I can answer to specific questions here. Please request. Request to give more details about website about the purchase and sale of practice. As I told you that we have got a website by the name beachpropexchange.com, on which we have created the number of icon or number of dropout boxes where a chartered accountant or advocate or a solicitor or a doctor or financial investment consultants or for that matter any professionals can visit our site, download the form, fill up the form and upload it. Or he can online also fill up the form and finish the things. So once it is listed, if there is any buyer already there to buy the practice, then we, if it matching along with the nature of practice and the amount of the investment required, by the prospective buyer, then we inform both the party that there is a matching party available. So would you like to have a meeting with them? Then we send the NDA agreement, non-disclosure agreement. When both the parties signs, then we arrange the meeting between both the parties. And both the parties negotiate and conclude the terms, and then they enter into the agreement. Before entering the agreement, the new incumbent or buyer may like to carry out due diligence whether the selling chartered accountant or selling professional has provided the correct details with respect to the nature of clients, nature of clients about the regarding fee, any issue, litigations pending against the client, etc. All those due diligence is required to be made by the buyer, and after he is having satisfied, he will enter into a sort of understanding with the retiring persons. Either he may enter into a proper partnership deed where it will be period will be mentioned about maximum 2 years, or he will take over the practice with an agreement that the person who is retired will guide him for a period of continuously for 2 years, and he will take the incumbent to his clients, introduce him about his qualification experience, and will assure the client that this person who has joined will be providing as secretary services at IM. So I don't think that if the retiring chartered accountant at least continues for 2 years, the new incumbent will suffer in any way. Hardly then the client, if after 2 years of handling the client, if any client goes, that means he is himself incompetent. Otherwise, normally client does not go after receiving the 2 years of service from a particular person. Tax effect. This will be a sort of, if it replaces goodwill, then it is a self-acquired goodwill. Because suppose he has acquired the goodwill by buying the practice, then of course the difference will be taxable as a capital gains. But suppose he has developed himself the practice and a self-acquired practice and self-acquired value, then I don't think that they will be liable to pay any capital gain tax on the transfer of the practice. What are the precedents? This is the venture we have launched for the first time in India. No one else is there as far as the proper sale of professional practice is concerned. However, there are some few firms available for sale and purchase of businesses, particularly from other countries who are having offices in India. But for sale and practice of professionals are not existing in India. I know also in any other country except USA, where there is a CPA sales firms are on sale. There are a number of websites available in USA for CPA sales practice. But in India, it is for the first time we're introducing it. So there is no precedent so far. It may happen in over a period of next 1 year. Benchmarking is done at a time of only entering into the agreement for buying or selling the practice. And that is normally based on the gross practice of the persons. So then both of them party negotiate, and if the price they arrived at is acceptable to them, then they enter into agreement. Otherwise, they will say bye-bye, goodbye, they will tell them. Because we charge, if it is a very low amount of practice, say about 50,000 rupees a month, then depending upon the buyer, who is suppose not competent, or who is not financially competent enough, then we may waive our professional fee. But if he is a really rich guy and can make the payment fully, then we do charge 5% to seller. Also the 5% to buyer, and also 5% to seller, both we charge. But if the amount of practice increases, but normally in case of proprietary company, there is hardly any professional practice who is running as a proprietor may exceed 1 crore, but most of the people are having a practice between the range of the 25 to 50 lakh rupees. So if that is so, then there is not much, can say in way of considerations, because this is a very time-consuming process. We have to spend lot of hours, lot of infrastructure, lot of our staff costs and other incidental expenses. So in order to cover it, we are charging our professional fee, just like we are charging to our clients for rendering the professional services for audit or for income tax or for GST. Similarly, we are charging here at a rate of 5%. Okay. And then whether you charge any fee from seller by, yes, website name and draft MOU. Draft MOU is shared only when we arrange the meeting, not before that. So once the meeting is arranged and both conclude the deal successfully and they inform us, at that time we give our draft MOU to both of them, and they will go through the MOU, and if they want, they can also negotiate on those terms. They can, they are at liberty and free to change the terms. Whatever written in the MOU is not totally must be accepted by buyer or sellers. As I told you regarding tax effect, that if it is a self-acquired goodwill or period of time, then I don't think he's liable to pay any tax on it. But if he has already acquired and paid the goodwill, paid the price for it, for example, in case of a new buyer who has paid the price to acquire the practice, then it is a cost. And when he will sell the subsequent seller, then the difference will be, may be resulting into a capital loss or capital gain. Depending upon the period of holding, it may be a short term or long term. Any other question?
12 number is there actually. What is the approximate valuation for sale?
What is the?
Hello. 12 number question.
12 number.
Yeah, 12. 1, 2.
What is the approximate valuation of the sale on the total value of practice, and what is the percentage of generally of valuation? As I told you, max value varies as per my US experience. It varies from 80% to 120% of the gross practice. In India, I don't know, because not so far we have just listed some of the sellers, few sellers and many buyers. So no deal has so far stuck down. So we are not sure at what rate it being will be negotiated. But I presume that it will not fall down below 80% of gross value, or 120% of gross value may exceed. Between in these two range of 80 to 120%, deal will be struck. And the retiring CA, particularly the proprietary company, should feel happy because he will get some compensation and it will help also his own professor brothers who is young, who wants to establish himself, where instead of getting zero, he is getting some compensation at least. So he should not be firm, or he should not be, I can say, strict about his terms. Because here is an opportunity we are providing to them to earn money at the time of retirement, which otherwise would not earn. So we are expecting not to go beyond 100% by the seller, and by the buyer not to quote below 80%, because he is also getting the ready-made practice. This is what my recommendation, my suggestion will be. See, there is a in case of a particularly sale of practice with a goodwill by the legal heirs of the deceased chartered accountant, then there is some restriction. You need a prior permission from the institute. But in case of a sale of practice where you are where you are taking the, for example, whatever price you have arrived as a part of the goodwill, and you make the incumbent or newcomer as a part, you will admit as a partner I don't think any permission required from the institute, or we are committing any breach of any ethics of the ICAI. Maybe there are conflict judgment as far as the self-acquisition goodwill is concerned. There are certain judgments, which are deciding in favor of the assessing. There are certain which are also the judgment. So it depends upon the court interpretations when we have to face the issue. Anything else remain?
Yeah. One more question is there. Hello. This one is 15 number.
I know. This can be negotiated prior to the merger or demerger for a certain period of time. Say, you can say within 2 years of acquisition of practice or merger of practice, if the practice goes down, then your considerations may be reduced. Or if simultaneously should be ready, if the practice increases, you should be willing to offer increase the value of the consideration. Then it is possible. Otherwise, it is a bargain, it is a deal, or which may result either in a profit or loss. It is up to the bar to suffer. But again, all depends upon how you enter the agreement, what are the terms of agreement you negotiated with and agreed to by both the parties.
Okay, these were the questions actually. Thank you. Thank you for answering the queries raised by the members. Anything more you want to share, Mahendra ji?
Huh?
Anything more you want to share? आपको अभी कुछ और share करना है?
See, I'm just telling you that when I requested you to form a trust for protect your wealth, as a chartered accountant, we have not much scope in the trust, because trust will have always income from other sources other than from any business. Because trust cannot carry on the profession. In any case, the chartered accountant professions or tax practice also cannot be carried on in the name of trust. So only it can have a income of other sources like rental income, dividend income, interest income. All those of income can arise in the trust, which will be divided among the beneficiary as per the, if it is discrete trust, as per the discretion of the trustee. And if it is specific trust, it will go according to the predetermined share. But if you want to really protect yourself from your today's generation, who are not much reliable as compared to the past, the incident, if you want to avoid like happening in case in the life of Mr. Singhania, whose son has driven him out of his house, that is because of famous case that come to the paper. But as a chartered accountant, you might have come across such incidents in your client's career life also. So if you want to protect the life of your client or life of your own wealth, I advise you strongly to form a private trust, discretionary trust, and where you can transfer all your property other than your practice, so that you can protect your son and daughter cannot claim anything without your discretionary power used in their favor. And that way you can protect yourself during your lifetime. Of course, after your life, we can always provide a clause that after death of both of us, whether husband and wife, the entire property will be either the trust will stand dissolved and will be distributed among the sons and daughters in a proportions that you can suggested by the trustee, or trustee can direct that there may be a formation of new trust, either one trust or as many trusts that there are children, so that if future dispute can be avoided among the children. But for businessmen, there is a lot of benefits if you form a trust. Like, for example, trust is a limited liability, like a private company or LLP. The liability is limited to the corpus of the trust or undisputed profit of the trust. Then there is no MAC. MAC is not applicable. Then, for example, related party transactions, no need to disclose. Then dim dividend can be avoided. As I told you, liability of the trust will be. Then there is no compliance because this trust is governed under the Indian Trust Act 1882, which does not require registration compulsorily unless you form a trust with some immovable property. So, if you form a trust with a movable property or cash gift or some shares, security, mutual fund units, or LIC or some policy or ornaments, then there is no registration required. But if you transfer immovable property, along with that, while forming the trust, then trust requires registration, otherwise no registration. But after having to form the trust, and if you want to transfer the property by way of gift to the trust, then there is a normal agreement, the sale agreement to be transfer gifted to be made. Since it is a immovable property, it requires to be registered under the Registration Act. Is also stamp duty also payable at rate of 1% if they are happen to be relative. There is lineal ascendant and descendant. So you have to tell just 1%. Plus, there is no limit on the number of partners or number of directors, shareholders. You can have as many trustees as you want. You can have as many beneficiaries you can have. Also, there is you can form a trust also for among totally strangers. They may not be blood relative. For example, carrying out business, 2-3 persons may come together, form a trust with an intention to carry on the business with either predetermined or undetermined share, whatever they wanted. But there is definitely benefit because trust is not required to be registered anywhere. So any amendment you want to make, any variation you want to make, you can make at any time without taking or seeking permission from anybody. So that will be the flexible. And there are all the benefits are proprietary concern benefits, partnership benefits, LLP benefits, private company benefits, all benefits available to the trust without any limitations. The only limitation with the trust is that banks are reluctant to give the loan to them, or trust cannot go for public issue. But these limitations can be overcome if the trust forms a partnership deed, enter into partnership with somebody by keeping a substantial to themselves and lower set for the partners, then they can do any business. And there is no limitations also in object clause, because the object clause you write only one line: the trust shall carry on any business unless it is prohibited under any law. The beneficiary shares can be also changed at the discretion of trustee. It may be equal today, it may be unequal tomorrow. It all depends upon the trustee discretion. So nowadays, most sometimes our sons or daughters are getting divorced after the marriage, and this phenomenon is increasing. So we are becoming, you can say, unsafe. What would happen if I admit my daughter-in-law or my son-in-law is a partner in my business or shareholder or director in my company, and if divorce takes place, then what would happen? Of course, whatever the amount lying to the credit, you have to give them back. But if it is discretionary trust, then trustee, unless a trustee accepts the discretion in favor of the beneficiary cannot get even 1 rupee. So he cannot go to the court and force the trustee to make any payment to him. So in that case, he can protect his family business and family wealth both from the relatives as well as from the creditors also. Only thing that all the property should have been transferred prior to 2 years of the bankruptcy or insolvency case or declaration of debt. If any transfer took place within 2 years, then those property are attachable. So these are the benefits of the trust. Okay.
Mahendra bhai, can you share any practical experience on domestic or international merger regarding sale of professional practice?
Regarding now, in foreign country, there are a lot of people, most of the industrialists are creating the trust. They call them offshore trust. Most of the trusts are situated in Tech 7. Even in our own country, Tata group of companies are controlled by Tata Trust. Not Tata Charitable Trust, but Tata Private Trust, registered under the Indian Trust Act. So nobody knows who are ultimate trustee of the Tata Trust or who are the ultimate beneficiary of the Tata Trust. All the Tata group of companies are controlled by Tata Sons Limited, which is a closely held company, where the profit and loss account is not available for inspection by any member, but balance sheet is available. However, the Tata Sons shares are itself held by the Tata Trust. So nobody knows as on today who are the trustee of the Tata Trust or who are the ultimate beneficiary of the Tata Trust. And through the trust, they are controlling all entire group. So this is the live example of in our country, the oldest example, almost I think more than 150 years old.
Okay.
Anything else?
No more questions are there, and thank you for sharing.